wanted to mention a few things before we get started. You haven't seen new videos in the past couple weeks. Yo, life is crazy, man. Besides everything I'm dealing with, there's also, I was doing construction at home. A lot of dust, a lot of noise. Yo, things couldn't get done. 2, stove is dirty. I'm on cleaning the stove to go back and clean it. We'll be doing quite a few dishes here today. The stove will get dirty, so I'm just doing all my dirty and then I'll clean. So I apologize for the dirty stove. 3, most importantly, we're going to do quite a few recipes we've done in the past. What I'm doing is putting everything together as, my Sunday meal. This is going to be my Sunday meal. It's very reminiscent of the stuff that I grew up on, in Trinidad and Tobago. Sunday lunch is the biggest meal of the week. All the family, everybody get together. So that said, all of those things out of the way, those recipes that you're going to see me do here will be available or are already available at CaribbeanPot.com in printable format. So let's get cracking. Pre-cooked salted pigtails. Now here's the thing. How I originally like to do this is to heat some olive oil in a pot and sort of saute my onions and garlic and pimento peppers and black pepper and all that to pull out the flavor. What we're doing here is the sort of boil method, but what I'm going to do, and the reason why I put the salted pigtail in first, it is simply because I want that to render out the fat, and that fat is going to start doing the sort of fry something, replicating as if we were softening up the flavor ingredients. And speaking about flavor ingredients, I've got a large onion followed by garlic. And you will notice it is a big pot. Shh. It is a big pot because I'm making, this is you can drink this as a soup, but for me, growing up, it was more or less a side to rice or ground provision. If you have pimento pepper, which is a seasoning pepper, I would encourage you to toss in about 3 or 4 in there. Unfortunately, I'm out of pimento peppers. Fresh ground black pepper. My heat is on medium-low now. And the whole idea is to render off some of that fat for the onion and garlic and everything to start doing its thing. But that's not going to prevent us from carrying on. We've got cubed up pumpkin. The key ingredient in kalaloo, which is okra, and that there is about 20 small okra. I like it with a lot of okra in there. Now here's the thing, people's going to say, well, I don't like the slime and okra. And, why this thing making noise, boy? I don't like the slime and okra, and is there a way to prevent the slime and give us a tip and a technique? If you don't like okra, keep away from this dish. Okra is a key component. I think a good kalaloo must have some sweet potato. So in goes 1 large sweet potato in there. And ladies and gentlemen, this will be a long video. There's no 2 ways about it. So it's either you fast forward or you skip or whatever you need to do. If you don't want to watch the video, just say, there's other things you could be doing if you want, up to you. Yet another key component, coconut milk. And that is 2 cups of coconut milk that I put in there now. Like I said, I have this recipe in the printable format on CaribbeanPot.com. On YouTube.com/CaribbeanPot, you will find I have a shrimp version, a vegetarian or vegan version, a lobster version, the traditional way, which is with crab, and the protein is crab. And I also have, most recently I shared one with salted beef. After putting the coconut milk in there, we're going to turn up the heat to bring that up to a boil, because here's where we're going to start adding the spinach. And I'm using everyday spinach that you can get in the grocery store in North America, wherever you're based. Traditionally, young taro or dasheen leaves are used. I don't have access to that right now, but baby spinach, which has been washed 3, maybe 4 times, and I cut out most of the long stems. It was longer, maybe it was about there. And this is 2 pounds of spinach, and again, this is why there's a big pot. So all I'm going to start doing is adding the spinach to the pot, and as things start happening in there, that's going to wilt down. So I'm going to put the lid on there, and the lid is going to help wilt this down and start bringing it together. We have 2 cups of coconut milk in there, so we're going to do a 1-to-2 ratio. So 2 cups coconut milk, 4 cups water. Stock, yeah, you can use vegetable stock if you want, but let's keep it real, man. Growing up in the Caribbean, we never use stock in this thing. However, when I did do the shrimp and the lobster version, I did do a stock using the shells from those things. But for now, we're just piling on the spinach, and I'm going to add the water in here and bring that up to a boil, so it's going to help boil it down. So 4 cups water, 2 cups coconut milk. Yeah, it will take a few minutes to come up to a boil and to start wilting down. What I will do is switch burners, move it to another burner, because I want to show you guys how we're doing the stewed pork. So in today's, and I don't know if I mentioned it already, the menu is callaloo, pigtail callaloo, salted pigtail callaloo. And while we're at it, I will not add any salt at this point to this, because there will be remaining salt in that prepared salted pigtails that I used there. And basically all you would do with the pigtails is to boil it in water until most of that salt is gone and it gets nice and tender. So anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half you would boil it in water and drain that water, and that's when you saw me add it to the pot there. But I will shift the pot over and start with the stewed pork. So it's boiled plantain, boiled yam, traditional Caribbean yam, what we call ground provision, pigtail callaloo, and stewed pork. In my nice heavy Dutch pot here, I've got 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil on a medium-high heat. To that, you want to make sure the pot was dry before you add that oil. I mean, it's a common sense thing. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of golden brown sugar, and this is the sort of brown stew method of cooking pork we love so dearly in the Caribbean. Now what's going to happen here is, I've done this video before and I've done the recipe before with you guys, the sugar is going to start melting, it's going to start going frothy, it's going to start going deep amber in color. It will become smoky in here. Once it goes deep amber, I have the seasoned pork here, and that pork is a fatty piece of pork. I like using pork with a bit of fat in there, and I'm just going to move this around just a little bit. Because I have hot spots. I know I have hot spots here, and I don't want it to burn. Don't wet your spoon either. That's a recipe for disaster and getting injured as well. The pork has been cut up into small pieces, like so. You notice there's some skin and there's some fat in there. Traditionally, that is how we would do it in the Caribbean. It's not something we can eat every day because of the high fat content in it. But we've got Caribbean green seasoning, salt, black pepper, a little Worcestershire in there, a tomato, some onion, ginger, the Caribbean green seasoning, a Scotch bonnet pepper, and if I had pimento seasoning peppers, I would also add it in there. But all of the ingredients you will find, in the recipe at CaribbeanPod.com. So it's going to go frothy as you're seeing here, and then it's going to go deep amber. If it goes black, shut the stove off completely. Allow it to cool down completely. Wash it and start over. If it goes black, you're going to end up with bitter tasting stewed pork, and nobody is trying to have you ruin your Sunday lunch with bitter pork. Alright? Now here we got to be careful. It's going smoky as you see. Notice it went frothy. It started to go that deep amber color that I alluded to earlier. So here, being careful, we're going to add the seasoned pork to the pot. I'm going to add about 2/3, and then I'm going to start stirring. I'm going to add the rest of it and stir that in as well completely. I had the lid on there to bring it up to a boil, so you can see we have that bubble going there. A couple things. If you wanted to add, and I will, some fresh thyme in there, you can add it in there. Now the Caribbean green seasoning already has thyme in it, but I love these sort of bold flavors of thyme. 2 things I like in my stewed pork: thyme and ginger. With that ginger base, blow your mind. Anyways, in the same bowl where you marinated the pork, I don't know if you guys can see that here. I just made a little bit of a mess. I have 8 cups of water that water is going to braise the pork later on, because I grew up eating stewed pork fork tender. Yeah, and the reason for having the fatty pieces of meat in there, pork can be very lean and very dry. That's going to add those oils, is going to do nice things in there. So what we're going to do now, we're going to put the lid on there. We're going to reduce our heat to medium, and we're going to let that cook for about 10-15 minutes. It's been going for about 10 minutes now, and you can see on the edges we got that bubble going on. So I'm just going to hit that a stir, and I kid you not, all that spinach wilted down that you saw we had there, all of that wilted down nicely in here. Now it's very easy from this step moving forward. There's a couple things we need to do. Now I used coconut milk from a can. You can use coconut cream, which is in a block form, or if you have the freshly grated coconut that's been juiced and you get the coconut milk from that, yo, you can't beat that. At this point, I'm going to add the Scotch bonnet pepper to the thing. And when I say thing, I mean the pot. And you'll notice I put that Scotch bonnet pepper in there whole. The whole idea is, if you don't want the heat from it, all you need to do is later on fish it out. The oils from the outside and everything will flavor the pot nicely. One of the things I wanted to mention, this is not a fully mature, so it's not all the way yellow yet. I find that a green pepper tends to have more flavor. Later on you can fish it out, as I said, if you don't want the heat. I don't want the heat, so I will bust that later on like no tomorrow and let that Caribbean sunshine go through there. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to let this go now. I'm going to put the lid on it like so, slightly ajar, a little breathing hole, and let that simmer away there until everything is nice and tender and start falling apart, and then we'll continue. Keep an eye on the liquid level. You may need to add some more water, but just keep an eye on things for now. Let's quickly switch back to the stewed pork. What we want to do now, and see all that liquid that's come up there, that's natural, the natural juices there. We want to burn that off, so we're going to leave. These are my pieces, an example of the slice of ginger. I have about 5 or 6 slices of ginger in the pot. We want to intensify the color and flavor of the stew, the brown stew. So what we're going to do is burn off all of that liquid. So we're going to turn up our heat to high, burn off all that liquid until we see the oil at the bottom of the pot. Then we'll add the water in the bowl over here and bring it up to a boil, and then we'll braise it until it's nice and tender. It will take about 4 or 5 minutes on that high heat to burn off all that liquid. But you notice the pot is, the bottom of the pot there is nice and clear up in the liquid. You start seeing the oils there. This is where now we're going to add that water to the pot. Make sure it's covered. We're going to bring it up to a boil, then we're going to reduce it to a simmer, and we're going to cook that until everything is nice and tender. That will take anywhere from another hour to an hour and a half, depending on the age of the pig when it was butchered. The older it is, the longer it will take to cook. But for now, that's all we got to do. Keep an eye on the level of water that you added in there. Quick tip, if you want to add a little bit of coconut cream in there, you can do that. I'm going old school. I'm not adding the coconut milk, but there are times when I do. If you wanted to add a teaspoon of curry powder in there, you can do that as well. Totally up to you. It changes the flavor of everything. All we're trying to do now, like I said, bring that up to a boil, reduce to a simmer, and let it cook. Actually, I'm going to put the lid on and show you. I'm going to have it slightly ajar with about a half a centimeter or so. Yeah, there we go. It's been going on that bubble. Yeah, I switched over pots on you guys again. Placement. It's been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. And you can see everything is falling apart. The salted pigtail is nice and tender now. Here is where I would suggest you taste it for salt and add salt if the salted pigtail, the remnants of that salt is not enough for you. What we have to do here now is a couple things to finish off things. We got to try and find the pieces of salted pigtail, like so. I'm going to take them out, I'm going to set them aside, and then we're going to go in and swizzle things to thicken it up and to bring it all together. Yeah, it did take a minute to get all of the pieces of pigtail out of there. I'm just going to turn my heat down to low. I've got my swizzle stick, And the swizzle stick, we've gone through this before. All we're doing is using a back and forth motion here, and the little indentations or blades or whatever you want to call it, the teeth, it almost looks like the teeth of a saw. It's not sharp though, it's just made out of wood. The back and forth motion like this is going to break everything down for me. And this is just the traditional way of breaking down the callaloo because we want it. And here's where you get to personalize it. The consistency and texture of it, the sort of thickness. Remember, when it cools down, it will thicken further, and the motion is this, if you're wondering. So I'm just going to go ahead and work that until it's to the consistency that I like. If you're using a stick blender, yes, you can use a stick blender, but please pulse it. Do not let it go continuous, or you will end up with frothy callaloo. The other thing you can do is, being very careful, you can pour this into a food processor or a blender, and again, pulse. Do not allow it to go frothy. You will kick yourself every time. You'll be like, wait, what kind of thing I waste the callaloo? Alright, let me do my work here, alright? It will take a few minutes, manual labor, but the reward, let's look at that niceness. Look at this smooth, silky, and it does have a bit of texture still, right? Because when you're playing with that spinach and when that okra breaks down, boy, I'm telling you, boy, this thing here, as it cools down, it will thicken up. Hit it one more taste and adjust the salt again. And the final step, being very gentle, you add back the pieces of salted pigtail to the pot and you stir it in like so. Yeah? Now, if you're looking for the recipe on how to make your own salted pigtail at home, I have that recipe at youtube.com/CaribbeanPot, as well as on CaribbeanPot.com. We also have, as I said, a salted beef version of this, a lobster version, the traditional crab version, a vegan version, and a shrimp version. So, one done, let's get cracking. It's been going for an hour and 50 minutes. I went ahead and I removed most, if not all, of the sprays of thyme. It's done its job, yeah? Going to give that a quick little stir. We're going to taste it for salt at this point, and we're going to adjust the salt accordingly. Now here's where you're going to personalize things a bit. I like adding a bit of chopped parsley to the game here. And the sort of personalization beyond the salt is whether or not the gravy is to your liking. This is a bit too thin for me. So what I'm going to do is allow it to cook for another 5 minutes or so. Then I'm going to shut the stove off and allow the residual heat to do its thing. So dish number 2 is done. Let's press on. Yeah, we're almost there. So let's take a look at the plantain. Some of you call it plantain, and the yam that will be. My water has come up to a boil, so I'm just going to move the lid. And you know, I grew up eating boiled plantain with Sunday lunch, and you know, that's not just Sunday lunch, that's the only format of plantain mommy would make for us. The yam is going in this pot here, so I'm going to add some salt. No salt where the plantain is going. Now, we did eat fried moko plantain, which is a shorter plantain, maybe the length of there, but much more fat. For the plantain, very simple. Now the water for the yam, I salted it. The water for the plantain, you don't need to salt it. All you would do, you will cut off the top and the bottom, like so. Cut it into the size pieces that you're going to be serving it. So this one, yeah, like so. Then you would take your paring knife and just the thickness of the skin, you would go down, yeah? That's going into the water. And again, like just like that. That cut is going to open up once it's boiled completely, and it'll be easy for us to peel. That simple, yeah? Here's the thing. Another classic Sunday lunch, a 2-ingredient, well, not 2-ingredient, but 2 items that I can think of offhand that really screams Caribbean and Sunday lunch and stuff like that is macaroni pie. If you're interested, and I do have a recipe for macaroni pie, 2 versions, smoked and the regular one, on CaribbeanPot.com. If you're interested in a new video showing you how to make a lovely stew chicken, that gravy on that macaroni pie is going to be brilliant. Drop a comment down below and I'll make that for you. The yam. This is not what most North Americans consider to be yam. most North Americans, and the way it's labeled in the grocery store is what we call sweet potato. This is the yam, yeah? We're gonna trim off the top. Beautiful sort of cream white color. And all you want to do is, and you can use a potato peeler. I'm using my paring knife like so, and you're removing the skin. And the skin is very thin, maybe a couple millimeters thin, but we're gonna, any sort of blemishes like so, you want to sort of take out. Yam is very expensive in Canada, yeah? So if you see me trying to leave back some of the discoloration there, don't hate. Uncle Chris just poured, that is all. But anyhow, what I would recommend doing is, this can be very slimy, and that may irritate your skin. So either wear gloves or coat your hands with some vegetable oil before you start doing this, and you'll be fine. It won't be itchy or anything like that. So all you would do is peel it, and the video is getting very long. I do apologize for the length of the video. It's just that, just trying to get back in the groove. Like I said, I haven't filmed in over 2 weeks. Well, close to 2 weeks. Just going to give that a quick rinse. And all you want to do is to hit them with a little choppity chop. So there is one piece. And you want to try and get them all the same size like that. I just wanted to get back in the groove of filming and show you guys what I'm eating today for lunch. So again, quick thing, man. You see this sort of, it looks like an umbilical cord, belly button kind of area here. That is where, if I were to cut this just a little bit deeper, I'll show you. This part here, but you need it to be a bit thicker, is what you would plant in the ground, and this would sprout out, and the new yam will grow down in the dirt below here, or to the side or something. But yeah, that's how it grows. I'm just going to go ahead and peel this one, and yeah, the colors are a little bit different than the first one, but it's normal. Different varieties of yam, different color and everything else. Alright? So I'm going to continue here. I'll be honest with you guys, the plantain could have been ripe just a little bit more, where it would be more yellow than that sort of white color that you're seeing there. Small thing, I'm still going to eat it, but try to get a plantain that's more black and sort of tarnished on the outside. The plantain is the sweeter it's going to be more ripe, yeah? It's one of them things, you know, when we see banana go spotty and black on the outside, we tend to think it's gone completely bad, whereas and for the most part, yeah, all we can do at that point with the banana is make banana bread and muffin and stuff like that. But with plantain, it's totally opposite, nice and black on the outside, and it's more ripe. All I'm going to do with the yam, and you know, and it wasn't only about yam mommy would have. Mommy would have green banana, she would have sweet potato, she would have Edo's, dashi. Boy, it's all kind of nice and sweet there, but I'm just keeping it nice and simple and tight and everything else. Any sort of impurities, sort of foam you see at the top there, you know, I was just skimming it off, and that's all. This is just going to take, the plantain is going to take about 5 minutes, and the yam is going to take 10 to 15 minutes, this variety of yam. And again, depending on the variety of yam that you have access to, it may take longer to cook. And what I say cook, is like cooking a potato where it needs to get soft. Yeah. How we're going to test it is we're going to use a paring knife, stick it down through the thickest part of the yam. Once there's no resistance, boom, we're good. All we got to do is drain it and put our meal together. I allow the plantain to boil for 6 minutes, and you can see where we gave it that cut. It has the split now, the skin split there. That was the reason for giving it that cut. I'm just going to take it off the stove, drain it, allow it to cool, and then we'll peel it. 20 minutes later, take a sharp paring knife, and you're going to see me go into the deepest part of the yam. No resistance. Yeah? So all we're going to do now, turn the stove off, drain that, and that is ready for consumption. And there we go. Just going to let the steam come out of it. What I forgot to mention earlier there, I meant to correct myself. The sort of yellow ones that you're seeing, this is not Jamaican yellow yam, this is white yam. Closer to the head or the top where I showed you where it would typically grow from, the closer you get to that, the more yellow it would be. And be honest with you, that area takes a bit longer to cook. just shift our attention now over to the plantain over here. Let me just move the camera over a little, and I'll show you how easy it is. So right where the split is, all you would do is roll it back. And if it was more ripe, like I said, it could be a bit more ripe, it would be a bit more yellow in color. So let me just plate this up and I'll show you guys today's Sunday lunch. Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com. Always a pleasure having you all in the kitchen with me. Stewed pork, boiled yam, boiled plantain, callaloo with pigtail. Yo, I'm going and talking. I do hope you guys have a wonderful meal, just as I am about to enjoy. I know I put all kind of love in there. I apologize again for the dirty stove, for the lack of videos, and for the length of the video in itself. But anyways, we're going to be back to normal soon. Construction almost done. Irie? Irie.